Okay, today we're going to talk about welding. I see this question all the time about how do you weld your letters together? Um, First thing we're going to go over is letter spacing. Up here, it always starts at 1.2. We are going to change this to negative 0.5 and hit enter. So that gives us a starting spot to change this. These, you can always change it to whatever you want. You can click these little arrows up or down. That's how I usually do it. But just change it to -5 and use that as a starting point. And then you can always change it again. Let's see. Okay. And another tip is to change the color, because let me zoom in here a little bit for you. You cannot see the cut lines on these letters. So let's go ahead and change that to a color where we can see it. Even if we want to cut it out in black, we don't see these lines, and we want to see those. So now we can see those. And I want to move these just a little bit closer together, I think. So now it's at -6, -7, and it's -0.5, not -5, sorry. -0.5. Now it's at -0.7. Okay, and we can see those cut lines. And another thing to do, if we want to ungroup this so we can move the letters closer together and we want to edit the font at any time later, what we might want to do is duplicate this and then just immediately hide it. So we're going to hide that. So if we want to change the text later, we can still do that, because once we ungroup, we cannot change the font or text. And once we weld, we cannot re-weld, or we cannot unweld, I mean. This is the Aphrodite Pro font. It's a font in Cricut Access. Okay, so we're going to move these closer together manually. So I'm going to ungroup, and I'm going to use the keyboard. So I'm going to move this L just a little bit closer. And right now, while I have this L selected, I want you to see this. Even though there's a huge space here and that's not what we want to see, it's actually overlapping the D here when you count the edge. That's why the letters always look that way. It's actually the correct space between them according to the letter spacing, because you can see how that W goes straight down. It overlaps that E just a little bit. So I'm trying to answer that question for people. Why does it do that? Thank you, Angela, for becoming a member. You can now use the emojis. Okay, so I'm going to grab these two letters. Oh, wait, I was going to scoot this one over. I'm going to use the key. Oh, that's too far. I'm going to use the space on the keyboard. Not the space. The key, arrow key. Can't think this morning. I'm using the arrow key to the left and moving this to the left. And you can have it not touch, or you can have it touch. That's too far. Just touch a little bit. Okay, and then moving the arrow key. These two are perfect for me, so I'm going to move this one over just a tad. And I like the way that is looking. So I'm going to grab these three and move them all at once with the arrow on the keyboard. Whoops. I'm going to move that just a little bit over. Grab those two. There. I think that will work. Move this one over a little bit. I'm going to move this one over to the T. Move them over so they're touching there. Now I'm going to grab this, move it over with the keyboard, the arrow key. Okay, now you could save this and you could duplicate it and hide it if you want to do that before you weld it in case you wanted to change it. You know, I'm going to group it first and then duplicate it. And then I'm just going to hide this whole group. I'm doing this in case I weld it and then later I do change my mind or I want to change where the letters are a little bit. I want to change the welding so I can do that later. Now this is grouped. There's no reason for this to be grouped, so I'm going to ungroup it because a lot of people get the misconception that you have to group before you weld. There's no grouping in welding. I also want to show you if I want to change the color of all these, I can just grab them all like that and change the color. Now I wanted to change it to black because now it looks correct. If I did not change this to yellow, in my mind I would think, oh, that looks good. Let's take it to the mat and cut it. And let me show you. This is how we used to have to do it. We had to click on each letter and change it. But now all we have to do is select them all and change all of them at once. If we were to go now, these little letters here would cut out. Actually, they wouldn't. Let's hit make it. Never be afraid to click make it because they're not grouped, they're not attached, and they're not welded. If you show this in my group Cricut Design Space with Melody Lane and ask, how do I fix this? The answer is always attach, but in this case, it's not. Let's click attach. This is what not to do. So I'm going to attach them. Still looks good. Look at all these layers are still here. They were there before. Now when we click make it, oh, that looks good. Especially if it was black, it would really look good. But it's not. I'm going to hit cancel again because all of these little pieces would cut out. This little right here around the E and the X, it would have a little circle cut out, part of the X, part of the E, and the whole letter would not be there. That would be cutting out. It would not be what you want it to be. So actually I'm going to detach because there is no reason to attach. We are going to select it all and we're going to click weld. Now you see those lines are not there. See, it just blends in from each letter. That means it's welded. Okay, you got that? And look over here in the layers panel, it all changed to one. This says weld result. Now these are here because that's what we saved and grouped. They're all hiding. The only thing visible on the mat is this one. I'm going to undo the welding. Now when I select all these, they're all these layers. I didn't select them all. I select them all and I weld and it moves them up to this layer. So it's all just one layer, and when we click make it, it cuts out correctly. Now if we want to, we can change the color. Now you can change the color to black and nothing will mess it up. Do we have any questions on this? And I also want to show you something else. I'm going to try to cause a problem that didn't happen. I was kind of hoping it did. That some people have when they weld. Let me see if it happens here. No, I don't know why it's not working. Sometimes when you weld, it will fill in the hole. Sometimes when they're too close together, no, it's not working. So I don't know how to cause that problem. Oh, wait, I do. I'm going to make it smaller. Let's unweld all that. Okay. Let's make it really small. Thank you for subscribing. Okay, now I'm going to weld it. See if this works. Okay, it did something wacky there. Usually it will fill in like the middle of the D or the middle of the E. In order to fix that, we have to go back to Unweld, and you have to make it really big. And sometimes, I mean really big. I mean, you have to, oh, it's probably not doing it because you have to shrink that down to zoom out really big and then make this huge and then weld it and then make it back to the correct size, and it fixes that problem. Okay, I'm going to look at the chat really fast. If you have any questions on welding. I don't see any questions, just a lot of chit chat. Love your chit chat. All right, guys, now you have a video to share with somebody if they want to know how to weld. Thank you for being here. I love you guys. I will see you tomorrow, 11 a.m. every single Saturday for Design Space class. Bye, guys.